So this video has taken far longer than it should have to record, and I really hope that this is the magic number, I guess. I've lost count of how many times I've tried to record this. Because the first time was a microphone issue, and I had forgotten to update my configuration. So there's a little slider that controls the input of the microphone, and there's actually a field under it written silence or suppression, I'm not too sure, and the level there was set quite close to it, far too close to it, sorry. But you know, that's what happens when you try to install and configure a system within 10 minutes. You forget to configure things. So what's happened recently? First, just like to say a big thanks to everybody that has subscribed and liked the content, because the channel's growing. Just hit 300 subs, and I couldn't be more grateful, because I did not expect that a fat hamster would get so much support in showing quick and easy tutorials and talking about Linux, you know, because everybody that I've met has said, oh Linux, you know, it's too much work, you know, which it really isn't. You can use distros that aren't like Arch Linux, right, that are just quick plug and play sort of things like Ubuntu, you know, or the last one, Elementary OS, and for the average user, I think that those are perfect. You know, you don't really need to install much. I can understand you being a little bit intimidated by something like Arch or Gentoo or anything like that, because there's just a lot of under the hood work that you have to do. But the beauty about it is that you will find ultimately that once you have everything set up and configured, you will have a system that is yours, you know, because you will know everything, and when there's an issue, you will most likely be able to fix it. But yeah, just again, eternally grateful for all the support. Everybody's been so kind, even with feedback and suggestions on how to do things. But let's get on to what this video is about. So, you know, this fat hamster was a little bit frustrated for about a week. Using Elementary OS wasn't a nightmare, but it was not very pleasant when I was actually trying to do things. So what do I mean by that? The UI, I just kept finding more bugs. For example, I'm trying to increase the volume output like this, you know, like you see happening on my bar here, and it's frozen. It just wouldn't move until I was going up here and clicking, and it just, I don't know, I just didn't like it. And one thing that really got on my nerves, and I may have mentioned it before, but I was here, not here in this field, but I'm just in the PC, and I can navigate, I can, you know, go through all the windows, and everything looks really beautiful and stuff, but the keyboard locked itself. So I'm trying to type some stuff, right, and I just can't input anything. And so what I have to do is lock the screen or reboot the PC, and then finally the keyboard would unlock itself. So it took a reset or a locking of the screen. Otherwise, everything was locked in terms of inputting from the keyboard. I don't know why that was, but it was driving me nuts. I was going nuts over it, because that was like a real critical bug, and it made me question what is stable and what is not stable. Because in Arch Linux, under Arch, I have never seen anything that bad, which is kind of surprising coming from a distro that has updates coming out, you know, on the daily. And I'm on Elementary OS, and it makes me think, you know, this is an LTS. It's, you know, derived from Ubuntu. Everything should be really stable, but it has all these small bugs, and if it's an LTS, most likely what it'll mean is that if these updates come, they will come really slowly, or you will just have to wait for the next stable release, which for me, I just couldn't take it, you know. And a lot of people criticize Arch and the fact that, you know, it's a rolling release, and by its nature it will never be truly stable. But for me, I have found that it's always been stable. I've never seen anything like that, like what I saw in Elementary OS. I've seen that in KDE, but I haven't tried KDE on Arch Linux, so I don't know if it's more stable or not. But things like that I hadn't seen. And then one thing that really bothered me were the updates. I'm used to just doing this. I'll just run yup, which is the alias I created to update. Whoops, I think I messed up my password. It's an alias that I created to update my system, and this is what I do. I just, wow, my internet is so slow. I just update all the packages in the system, and then I clear the cache. So this is what I do once a day. And in elementary OS, it was just constantly checking, and for the life of me, I could not figure out a way in the GUI, at least in the UI, to shut it off. You know, there's a software package called Software Center or App Software Center, and it looks nice, you know, but I'm going there and there's no configuration at all for it. So I'm pretty sure that there's probably a file that has the update configuration on it, the frequency. And if you're on an LTS, why are you checking for updates every day? You should probably be checking for updates once a week, you know, or even bi-weekly. But it doesn't really matter on an LTS, right? You can update whenever. And this was driving me nuts, that I could not do this. And for that, I won't criticize the OS, because it's just a lifestyle choice, right? Like being on Arch Linux, you know, updating every single day or weekly or whatever. Should probably do it once a week, but anyway, that's just a choice, you know. That's a personal choice that you make over having a stable distro that's, you know, configured for the long term, right? So you're only getting critical security updates usually. So I can't knock it on that, but it just made me think, if I have to go through figuring out under the hood how to fix all of these small bugs or, you know, configurations, why am I not on Arch Linux? You know, why am I not back here? And that's why I ultimately decided, you know what, let me go back to Arch Linux, because those bugs were annoying me to the point where I was going to go under there and, well, I shouldn't say under there, but you guys get the point. I was going to go in there and try to fix what I could, you know, especially the updates. I was going to really find where that configuration file was, and I was going to, you know, edit it to what I wanted it to be. But when it got to that stage, I said to myself, I should just go back, bite the bullet, you know, and set up my PC again. Yeah, it's going to take me some time, and I had some mistakes, like the audio for the mic input being set too low. I had that problem, but at the end of the day, this is the way I want my system, you know, and I couldn't be happier. This fat hamster felt like he went to a hotel, a very expensive hotel, and he was just noticing all these, you know, issues in the room, and he's like, what's going on here? Before I made my own little crevice, you know, why can't I just live like I did before? So I think that I'm gonna just stay here, because I really just can't get over I can't get over having control of my system, to be honest with you. So I won't be leaving this anytime soon. But that was just a quick rant. I don't want to knock elementary OS, because it's a good system. It looks really nice, and I had that available back maybe in 2011, back when I, you know, started messing with Linux, which was on a PS3. I got to do a video on that, because that's how I really learned Linux. I remember, you know, it was touted as a supercomputer, which it kind of was amazing, because it did have, well, I mean, they're not exactly cores, but I think it had like a quote-unquote 8-core CPU. They weren't cores exactly, but it had like a dual core and then sort of 6 or 7 sub-processors, something like that. I don't really understand the architecture, but Sony advertised it as a supercomputer that could run Linux on it. And the funniest part is that it only had 256 megs of RAM available. And then once Sony became a little bit more generous, they actually unlocked the GPU memory and allowed you to use it as a swap. So imagine trying to run a web browser with, I mean, I'll be kind and I'll say 512 megabytes of RAM. Imagine that experience, running a web browser. I mean, it was awful, but this is how I learned Linux. And had I had elementary OS back then, it would have been a dream, you know, because it could have, you know, you could make it so lightweight that it could run, I think, on a PS3. If you really get to the min, you know, of everything, you could really make it run, and it would have been a great experience. But now that I've learned a little bit more, I just feel like I can't go back to that kind of experience of having everything done for me, because sometimes I want things done differently, and maybe the options are not there, like the automatic updates. I don't know why, but that just really got to me, the automatic updates. Windows really ruined automatic updates for people, because that's where it stems from. We all know that pain of waiting 3-4 hours for your PC to finish installing 6 updates. Like, we've all seen that, right? Whereas in Arch, it's like, you update and it takes, how long? Like, if you even on a traditional hard drive, it takes no more than a few minutes. So yeah, I'll just be sticking here from now on. And I've got a quick video also coming out on selecting the optimal mirrors. So in case if you're bouncing around, going from different places often, you'll be able to just boot up your PC, and at boot it'll select the top 5 closest servers to you. You can even have bordering countries. So for example, let's say you live in Canada and you want to use the closest servers to you. You'll probably want to get servers from the USA, because the latency times won't be that different from you being in Canada. Whereas let's say if you're trying to use a server in Germany, it'll probably lag at times. So this is really neat and cool, and I'm not going to get into that because that's going to be for something else. But this was just a quick video on my experience going back into a traditional desktop and coming back here to DWM and Arch, because it was just starting to get on my nerves and I couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, again, I'm eternally grateful for all the support you guys have given. Couldn't have made it to 300 subs without everybody. Well, of course, couldn't have made it because everybody needs a sub, right? But yeah, and the likes and everything and the comments, everybody's been great. So again, if you like the content, if you think Rin is hot, let's go take a look at Rin. Yeah, she's pretty hot. If you like Rin, the content, the fat fluffy red hamster, please give a like and a sub. So I hope you found this useful.